Jay here, Stretford Paddock. That's Ronaldo Brown, and this is the Paddock Podcast. Make sure you are getting involved in the chat in the comments. We're going to be talking about all the latest Manchester United news and opinions, because there's always Manchester United opinions, isn't there, Ronnie?
From us, from rival fans, from everyone. It's the most talked about club in England, no matter how well or how badly we're doing.
Do you think we're the most talked about club in the world?
I can't say that. You can't say that.
You're a man well-travelled. You've been everywhere.
Because you never know. The likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona, they might get quite a lot of coverage abroad. But when we're not watching the other European leagues as much, we're not quite sure whether they take too much of a care of how Manchester United are doing.
I think with United,
the fans of Lille are asked about how United are getting on. Because we even playing Lille on Thursday. Are they that bothered? Do they keep up with what United are getting up to?
I don't know, It's a good question. I know when we go, because we don't really get to see what everyone's thinking. We only get it through a United sort of prism.
Lens,
thank you. That's a much better word. Because when we go to, like, when we went to Australia or Thailand or America, when you're over in America, obviously everyone's going nuts for United, but we're amongst United fans in America, so obviously they're going to care about Manchester United. Whereas if you went to, say, New Jersey on just a Tuesday afternoon and went to the local mall, as they call them, I doubt everyone's chatting about United's
if we talk
0-0 draw with Sir.
If we're talking UK media coverage, and it obviously
UK, 100%. I think Martin Samuel said it once, and I don't really listen to much what he says, but he said that you stick United in the headline because it gets more clicks, gets more views, makes more money. And you notice that with certain headlines that are actually nothing to do with United, they'll try and shoehorn in. They get United angle.
They get really inventive in the international break as well, don't they?
Yeah.
They make sure that they're just circulating around like the Bowden, Winslow, Chester area, just trying to see if they can catch. They can catch one of the United players putting the bins out.
Yeah, Presborough's a good one for you. That's like the place to be for a lot of United players. But you're right, it's like that. I did a thread on it. In fact, you know what? Do you know what, Ronnie? We're gonna get into it. Yeah, I know this sounds a bit like egotistical. Should we look at the this was in the Daily. This was the Daily Mail, right? If I can find it right. So I did a thread on United players doing the most mundane things. So the Daily Mail coming after United players for the most mundane things, right? So these are some of the headlines we've seen. And I could have done the Sun, hashtag don't buy the Sun. I could have maybe even got away with like the Star or the Mirror, to be honest with you, because they all do it. But it says here, so Bruno Fernandes, this was one of my favourite, this was in 2020, so it wasn't lockdown though. This was February 2020. He's not breaking any rules. Bruno Fernandes and his wife stock up for their new lives in England as Man United's 68 million signing loads up his trolley in supermarket spree. Yeah? So basically, Bruno Fernandes went shopping. And there's lovely pictures here of Bruno Fernandes and his missus loading the car up, getting some toilet roll and just getting shopping. Like, that was the story, right? Another one here. This was my favourite, or one of my favourites. Erik ten Hag is on chore duty as the United boss heads to the shops for luxury toilet tissue, and this was the killer, just days before Old Trafford FA Cup clash against rivals Liverpool. So not only was he going for toilet roll, he was actually doing it just days before. Why was he not at home studying videos of Liverpool? Why was he not preparing for the game? Why is he going getting toilet roll? Just days.
That's one thing that I funnily admired about Ten Hag. No matter where he was packed, he was always wearing football kit. I think there was one where he was on a date. He was on a date on holiday with his missus.
Yeah.
And he had United training kit on,
I love
or
that.
training merch.
I respect
or a
that,
jacket on. He just wasn't. He was dedicated to the cause, but he just weren't the guy, was he?
I know. There's a lot to like about Erik ten Hag when you took away the football.
And the manager.
Yeah, and the managing of our football team. Right, here's one for you. And they've gone with a little twist here. Any big game nerves brewing, Man United star Casemiro is spotted getting a coffee with his wife before hopping back into his 200k Bentley Bentayga. I don't know how you say it, I've never had one. As the informed midfielder treats himself to a drink ahead of huge Liverpool clash. So he got a coffee.
Was he trying to get to a word count there on the headline?
It does feel a little bit like there's a lot of info in that headline, isn't there? That's a headline. That's not the story.
1, 2, 3, 4. That's 7 lines.
Seven lines on a headline. And also, what's the article going to tell you now that the headline doesn't? What other information can that article hold for us? That's ludicrous.
But they've already clicked onto the page though.
That's it. I mean, yeah, that's a good
point.
Because
now, for example, obviously, why are you kind of reeling off these Daily Mail and just kind of laughing at the coverage that United get compared to pretty much every club in England?
Yeah.
It does leak into the punditry, because all you ever see on YouTube, as we're going to speak about, you see on YouTube as well, whether it be on ESPN FC, whether it be on TalkSport, whether it be on Sky Sports or TNT, a lot of the things that they do clip up are usually topics that are surrounding Manchester United.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of that as well from last night's game, and I didn't actually see a lot of them until today. I think because the game was that boring and that uninspiring that as soon as it ended, I was like,
you see,
put it to the back of my head.
I get your point. I kind of get where Steve was coming from, though. Where he said it wasn't that United were dead boring. I just don't think we're good enough. There's a bit of a difference. Do you know what I mean? I think there was certain times where if we had a bit more quality, we could have done something. We'll get to that in a minute, though. I've got a question for you. What can be worse as a story than a story about Angel Di Maria cashing in on his early success at United using a cash machine, right? What can be worse than a story about a United player using a cash machine?
What could be worse than
what can be a more
story,
boring story or less interesting story than a United player using a cash machine?
I actually don't know what could be worse than a United player using an ATM.
Well, I've got one for you. A United player standing near a cash machine, because after that Angel Di Maria story, there's a better one here. It says Manchester United defenders Luke Shaw and Marcus Rojo out in Cheshire as Argentine waits outside the bank. So he didn't even use the cash machine. He was just stood near the cash machine. Wow. And you know what? Fair play to these journalists for actually doing this.
Just waiting to zoom in as soon as they put their pin in.
This is my favourite kind of United story as well, right? You know when like United lose or a player has a bad game and then a player just goes about his life and then people act like, what is he doing out and about after he's just lost to Liverpool or to City? How dare he put petrol in his car just 4 days after a Derby Day defeat? The absolute scumbag.
Do you know what we'll say? You got to give these tabloids, obviously, the criticism for publishing these stories.
Yeah.
But for him to do it so often in so many years,
people read it.
Us as a fan base must be giving it credence, because
that's it. This is it.
I think what's happening is we can often criticise Daily Mail and The Sun for the stuff they put out and going with those stories.
Yeah.
But I think it's it's how reactive the fan base can be and how petulant sometimes, that those stories actually do get people riled up. It does get people talking. And that's why they keep publishing them. Because we're looking at it thinking, why has anyone asked? But
I mean, this thread I did this thread a few years ago and it's still going.
Yeah, there are a lot of people.
It gets retweeted now.
There are a lot of United fans that would actually have lost to Liverpool. A story 2 days later, they know that just saying, David De Gea has gone to lunch in a posh restaurant with his wife, they know a lot of people are going to get upset saying, why is he doing that after we've lost? Look at him. He's not as upset as I am. My week has been ruined, but look, they're able to be on all this money, living their life still. So I think it's a combination of these tabloids publishing out non-stories, but then actually getting reactions from some of the people in our fan base, which they shouldn't.
Here's one that's not clickbait. This is a bit of breaking news. It's a story in the Daily Mail, which isn't which actually does have some merit to it. And this is from Mike Keegan. It says, exclusive, Jack Grealish slapped in the face by Man United fan. Man sweaty is arrested and charged with assault in new crowd shame after vile Phil Foden mum chants. Jesus wept. These Phil Foden mum chants are never ending. Or the stories about them are. And also, United, I'm not justifying these chants, I'm just saying, United fans aren't the first people to do that. Leicester fans were doing it ages ago, no one cared, but now it's United, it's become a massive thing that everyone keeps going on about, and I think the best thing to do is ignore it and move on. Otherwise, you're just going to amplify it and encourage people to do it next time, because that's what's going to happen. Anyway, it says a man has been arrested and charged after Jack Grealish was allegedly slapped in the face by a fan at the Manchester Derby. The City midfielder was making his way off the field following Sunday's 2-0 draw, when he was beckoned over by a member of the crowd next to the tunnel at the bottom end of the Stretford end. In shocking scenes, Grealish was then assaulted, triggering a police investigation. A 20-year-old man was subsequently charged with assault and will appear before Manchester magistrates in July. I mean, goes without saying, don't be slapping players. That's just dumb.
It's actually the second time he's been hit by a fan, you know.
Do you remember that one against Birmingham City fan ran on the pitch and chinned him, or tried to? Yeah, I mean, like, I'll be honest, yeah, if that was a United player and he got slapped, I'd be fuming. And also, let's not start making that a thing. You don't assault players, you don't hit players, do you? Come on. And also, Jack Grealish, why is he riling you up? Do out. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I'm not saying it's justified if it's someone that annoys you, but that just seems so dumb, to be honest with you. Get involved in the chat in the comments. We're going to talk about pundits, of course. People agreeing with you. AAO, someone just said, exactly, Ronaldo. Yeah. AAO says, Casemiro getting a coffee. Game's gone. Yeah, it has, and it controversial. But you mentioned earlier there, in a nice little segue, about pundits sort of do this kind of thing now, and it spills into that sort of sphere as well. We know that United, we're in this sort of perfect storm of United with pundits, right? Because a lot of pundits are ex-United players, because we are the most successful Premier League club. Yeah?
Yes.
We've won 13 titles. No one else comes near that in the Premier League, obviously. A lot of our players who won those titles and were part of that success are of a pundit age. So between the ages of 40 and 60 is like prime pundit age, isn't it? Yep. And a lot of them are around that age. So you've got the likes of Neville, you've got the likes of Roy Keane, one or two others as well, depending on Rio, of course, what channels you watch. You're going to get ex-United players. So players who have played in a successful Manchester United team are going to be on the telly giving you their opinion on things, right? And to add to this perfect storm, you have got the worst United team in Premier League history. Statistically.
Okay.
By a country mile.
Yes.
So that is where you're going to get players that played for United and were used to lots of success and high standards commentating on a United side that is struggling. So I think that adds to a lot of the sort of the criticism and where they're coming from. Where you've got these players who, when they were playing at United, if you finish second, there's probably an inquiry and everyone's fuming. They're seeing a team in the bottom half of the table. They're probably thinking, what's going on at United? Do you get it from that point of view?
So, I think for me to answer that, I got to see exactly what's being said.
Okay.
Though. Is it like, because then I can say whether it's too far, whether they're being a little bit too critical because of them playing for the club previously and they've got a little bit of an impassioned response to it, or whether it's something that I actually might agree with.
So on that, we've got a Roy Keane here. Is that the one about Bruno? Yeah. So it says here there is a responsibility when you're playing for Manchester United to try and win football matches, and I still don't think they're doing that enough. Is that not from yesterday? Sorry. Right. So there was a criticism of Bruno from Roy Keane where he says Bruno's a talented player, but it's not enough. Laid into him, I think he called him a bluffer. There was a lot of criticism there. And then, he said, I don't see it in the few games I've watched recently. They get a few plaudits for their possession being neat and tidy, but when people say they were neat and tidy, what the hell does that mean, being neat and tidy? So I think that's after the Forest game. Roy Keane talking about being neat and tidy. What does that mean? People are saying United are neat and tidy. Which
I think we know what Roy Keane's like, and he's very, very hard to please. I think what he said about Bruno on the overlap was wrong, and I think we've been on camera a few times.
Yeah, I don't want to go
incorrect.
Too much into that, but you're right.
But a lot of the time when he's been critical of United's performances, it's come from a place of truth, in essence, because over the last few years, probably spanning back to a decade, there hasn't been much to be positive about when it comes to United, apart from a couple of trophy wins, obviously. Always good to win major honours. But think about it. If you was to say what are the 5 or 10 worst performances you've seen as a Manchester United fan, I reckon 80% of them would have come in the last 5 years.
I think you're right,
and that's no matter how long you've been watching.
I can do that. I can do that. You're right. I like this game. Well, don't. It's horrible. But the 5-0 against Liverpool at Old Trafford under Ollie was within 5 years ago. The 7-0, obviously. The 6-3 at the Etihad. Do you know what rattled me?
4-1 away at Watford.
Yeah, that was woeful.
That's more than 5 years. Oh, is it?
No, it's not. That was Ollie. Do you know what? Right, this sounds ridiculous. But it was the nature of the defeat and the fact that it was like a training ground for a game for City.
I remember this game that you're talking about. 2-0. That one was...
City didn't get out of second gear and we didn't lay a glove on them. Yeah. It was just like they got 2 quick goals, 2 early goals, and just kept the ball for about 70 minutes.
So obviously, remember when we thought the world was ending with the 6-1? Over 10 years ago, and also, Edin Dzeko, under Sir Alex, and we thought that was...
Yeah, but part of the reason that obviously was horrible, and you're right, but it would be in one of my top defeats. But at least with that, you can go, okay, we went for it. The last 5 minutes was when it all really fell apart. We were down to 10 men for the majority of the game. And listen, I like Rio Fernandes, he's been on the channel, but I will never forgive him for that header that led to Johnny Evans' red card. I thought that was all his fault.
Yep.
And also, I thought Fergie waited too long to bring Phil Jones on. It was like he still thought we could win this when the game for me was done.
Yeah.
I know it sounds crazy because Phil Jones, but this is when Phil Jones was like...
So we lost 6-1, but there wasn't that... There wasn't that sense of like helplessness that we've had in a lot of the games recently. But obviously, going back to the point of the pundits, and you've seen... Because Gary Neville is someone that comes on to commentary, and he's very, very... almost... I think he does border on being too far with it in terms of his negativity.
Do you want some quotes from him yesterday?
Especially when he's covering United, but especially when it becomes he's not offering like solutions for it. I think that's another
great point. Now.
Do you know what I mean?
Really good point.
So I think that's one thing that does gripe people. And in fact, I'm saying that people have said that to me. People have commented that to me, and I agree, because it is actually very easy to say that's wrong, that's awful, that's terrible, but if you don't actually come up with something that's a solution for it, then it is really a bit of an empty statement in it. And that's what I think I think if you are being paid to be a pundit, I think there's a little bit more earnest on you providing a little bit more input, more insight, some solutions, rather than me. Do you know what I mean? As much as I love being on YouTube with Jay, do you know what I mean?
I think you make a great point, because I remember I've written articles and stuff for national newspapers, just what I do. And and I remember one of the first articles I wrote was complaining about United's midfield, lacking midfield options. I remember the editor saying to me, love this, give us some options in the article. Like, don't just say, here's the issue. What you've said, what is the solution then? What should we do about it? Offer a little bit more of that. So I added a little bit more to say, like, you know, I think we were about to play Arsenal, and I think our midfield was like proper weak, and they had bought like Rosicky or someone. I mean, this is going back a long time. Is it Rosicky? Not Rosicky. But he said, like, offer a solution. And I think you are right on that. I think a lot of the time people just moan and say, oh, Bruno's not good enough as a captain, or this is... The Bruno thing, I don't want to keep going over it because we've mentioned it a lot, but the one argument I've always had with the Bruno criticism of him as a captain is, okay, who is the captain then? What's your solution to that? If it's not Bruno... Because when people say, oh, you know... People were saying at one point it should be Mahrez. He's barely played since that became a thing. Casemiro's another one who doesn't always play. There's not many there. So I do think that at times you want a bit more from pundits than just identifying a problem we can all see. We can all see United aren't playing well. We can all see there's a lack of goals. How do you fix it? Here's what, Gary Neville said. And then I'll get into some comments. Hit me with the comments as well. Gary Neville said, they're going to go for a roast dinner together now. They're micromanaged to an inch of their lives. So robotic, and it's symptomatic of a lot of games that we're watching nowadays. This is talking about both City and United, to be fair. The best Man City and Man United teams will be very disappointed with the way they've approached the end of that game. It looks like a Sunday afternoon, and then the roast dinner quote. He then goes on to say, it's becoming a disease in the game about the way that they don't have any freedom. He says, being micromanaged within an inch of their lives, of not having any freedom to take a risk, to go and try and win a football match. It's becoming a disease in the game. Pep Guardiola and his teams over the last 10 years, that's what his teams do. But we're seeing poor imitations of that across the board. United's goalkeeper rolling his foot on the ball and waiting for things to happen. That's not it. That's not what this club is. That's not what we do here. Liverpool don't do that. He then went on to say it was quite depressing for him. What do you make of them comments?
You know, I agreed with everything he said in that statement. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought Gary Neville was right, but I wouldn't. He makes it a bit of a sweeping statement though, because I think there's a lot of teams in the league that play football not Pep-like, or not poor iterations of it, like he said. I think even if you look at the likes of Bournemouth and Newcastle, and even like Brentford at times, and if you look at Villa under Emery, and you mentioned Liverpool, I think Liverpool are one of the big sides that do play this kind of expansive football with a little bit more freedom, and it is a little bit more excitable. I feel like there's a lot more that can happen. I think it's when I watched Chelsea versus Tottenham, and I thought that was an awful game, and I did tweet that, and it did seem boring, like lack of mavericks. It seemed a bit stiff and a lack of quality, and it was the same yesterday. So maybe you can say that for the likes of United and City and a lot of the big six, but I think some of the football outside of it is still pretty good. But I think he's talking about sometimes the big game matches don't feel like quite the same calibre as they once were, because obviously I'm going back to my younger days, and I remember loving a Grand Slam Sunday.
Yeah.
Remember that when it was the traditional big four? Was it Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, United?
Yeah.
And those matches, it felt like there was so much jeopardy in both.
Yeah.
It was on Sundays. I remember how great, I'm smiling thinking how great it was. And the quality of both games were usually brilliant. To be fair, there weren't often a lot of goals in it.
Yeah.
But there was always flashpoints, excitement. It felt like there was a lot riding on it, and there was quality players left, right and centre on both teams. Doesn't quite feel like that anymore. Obviously, you could say the Premier League's improved maybe from like the bottom half to like mid-table. But I think there's a little bit of a truth in that, is where Pep has come in with obviously an oil club in Manchester City with unlimited funds, and he came from Barcelona with this possession football and this positional play that he had, and then everyone's kind of copied that in football a little bit in a way, thinking that's the obviously blueprint for success, because in sport it is a copycat league. You do try and see what's doing well, and then you try and obviously implement that in your own way. But I think it's gone a bit far now, where there's a lot of football games especially that are terrible, and it feels like the great games between the big sides are becoming quite few and far between.
Do you know what? You made me sort of nostalgic when you talk about that, because you're right. You've nailed everything you said there. A lot of those games were close. A lot of them were draws, or there's one goal in it. But you know, at the end of a season, and if you go look at United when we were winning titles, you go like to 2007, 2008, probably 2003. Look at how many points were in it. Look at how many points. And even when there was like 5 or 6 points in it, those games were the turning point, or those games were the ones where that was the difference. Do you know what I mean? Like, if we'd have beaten, I remember when Chelsea beat us at Old Trafford in 2010, like, that cost us the league. And Drogba was offside, by the way, and I still hold that to this day. But it was always like these games where the jeopardy was there, the importance was there, and even if the football at times wasn't the most exciting, whatever, there was always a fight in there. There was always a bit of needle. Do you know what I mean? You go back to the Arsenal games, and sometimes the football in the Arsenal games was really good, but it went off. It went off. There was like the crowd were up for it, the players were up for it. There was a bit of, yellow cards flying around, maybe the odd red card as well. It was so exciting. And do you know what? The second half against Arsenal this season, I know this is going to sound insane, but Old Trafford reminded me a little bit, only a little bit of that. We began, let's say, it just reminded me, there was a spell in that game I thought, this reminds me of the old United Arsenal games. Obviously, not to the standard, the quality we saw in terms of the players and that, but just the atmosphere and stuff that was going on. It was like, the crowd were up for it, and I thought, this is what I've missed.
Everything about the Manchester derby this weekend was shocking, because it didn't have a lot of buzz going into it. It's probably the least hype that I've seen going into a Manchester derby in as long as I can remember. And then it lived up to that in terms of, it was just such a nothing game, it felt like, and both teams seemed okay with the 0-0 draw.
I think there was maybe an element of that psychologically, right?
Both teams on the beach, it felt like.
I just think United, the Europa is the be-all and end-all. And I also think, maybe it's just me as a fan, and maybe the players think differently, but my biggest worry about that Manchester derby was we're going to get done, and then we're going to take that into the Lyon game, where you just come off the back of a bad result or a bad defeat against City, and does that affect you, and you're going into that lacking confidence. And I feel like a 0-0 is almost like, okay, it's fine. Now it's just all focused on the Lyon game. Maybe I'm wrong. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Lewis Archer says, I agree with him, if I'm honest. We have a style of play, and it's basically lock in for no strikers to score. We don't pass the ball to strikers at all. Joshua Zirkzee gets chances as he is slow to get in the box. Sleejo James John says, say it, Ronaldo. Pep ruined football.
It's hard to say.
Sandra Knott says that, sure, United weren't thinking of Europa and injuries. That's what I mean. I just wonder whether there is an element of luck.
So what are City thinking of then? Because City felt like they played the same way.
Well, City have got something to play for. They're in the hunt for Champions League football.
I say
through the league. Our only hope of Champions League football is the Europa. City, I mean, they're probably going to get top 4, but it's not set in stone yet. I don't even think, where are they in the table at the minute? I think they're outside the top 4.
Yeah, it is, but it's top 5, isn't it?
Oh, is it top 5? Sorry, the 5th. Well, the 5th though. So it's not even that. Like, Villa are only a point behind him. It's not beyond the realms of possibility.
Newcastle 2 points.
With 2 games in hand. If Newcastle win both their games in hand, Newcastle will be on 56 points. So that's 4 points above Manchester City.
And obviously Newcastle have 2 games in hand as well.
That's what I'm saying,
and they're playing Leicester today, which is for Premier League teams now is a guaranteed victory.
I don't like what's going on at Leicester. I hate seeing Ruud van Nistelrooy when he's just getting fucking battered every week.
I've been saying this. What do you lot think should be done about the fact that this is going to be the second season in a row where all 3 promoted sides have gone back down straight away? And because I think the gap between the Championship and the Premier League is going to widen, because the teams between like 10th and 17th have more money than they've ever had before. They're recruiting better. They're getting better managers, better players.
What are you smirking at? Yeah.
No, I agree. So I don't know.
Harvey's our social media guru.
I literally think we could find ourselves in a situation where there are going to just be more teams like Southampton and Leicester and Ipswich as well, who've tried their best, and it's just because McKenna's a good gaffer with a lot of players still that we're playing for him in League One. I just don't think they really have much chance. I think the way that they distribute the money as well for promoted Championship sides isn't super great as well. It's almost like they come up and they've just basically got a plan for being strong when they go back down. But I don't know. I think it's going to be...
I think you're right.
Because everyone says the Premier League standards dropped. I guess maybe at the top it has, in a way, but I do think the Premier League quality has risen in terms of the teams outside the big 6, 100%. I think they've narrowed the gap a little bit, which has kind of like amplified the whole fact of the top 4 teams being not as good, because now they can't get away with it because the margins are a little bit smaller now.
I think you make a good point, Ronnie, and I think the best solution is to scrap this season. Doesn't count. We got it wrong. It's not fair. Let's just start again next season. Yeah,
have you seen they're implementing a new rule for the last month of the season?
What
is it? Can someone confirm that? Is it? I don't know if it's a VAR thing or there's a new rule or system of like making decisions for the last month of the Premier League season, and then a United fan tweeted, which was hilarious, saying there's 2 different sets of rules within one season. It doesn't count.
I'll have that. You can't have the 2 sets of rules in a season.
Liverpool have won the league.
Not fair.
Liverpool have won the league in a season where there were 2 different sets of rules and a rule change within the season. That's
unfair. Davo Djukic says, such overreaction to a decent draw we could have won in a season. Both teams are struggling. This constant comparison with the past is holding us back. Brian Casey says, semi-automated offside. It's a semi-automated offside. Everyone is saying that. So that's the rule change that is referring to. Ridwan says, bring Leeds back. We need the 6 points. Do you know what? That was great. That when Leeds came up, they'd waited for 16 years, or whatever, for a Premier League game against us, and they got battered 6-2.
And then see what happened.
That was my favourite fan channel clip.
You saw what happened on the weekend as well.
Oh mate, Finn's in tomorrow. I thought my phone was glitching when I was trying to keep up with them scores. 13-1, 13 stone in a day. 13-1. The United under 18s beat Leeds. We all hate Leeds. So,
is it mad that I'm young enough where like I have little to no hatred instilled in me towards Leeds, because they've never had any sort of real relevance as long as I've been watching Manchester United. Is it that bad that they've been? Is it for that long they've been that bad?
Not really. I get it,
because my first prominent memory of watching United, like that 2007-ish mark and onwards, and I don't know if Leeds have ever been any way comparable to Manchester United since then, and they've not spent a lot of time in the Premier League in that era as well. So it's like,
no, do you know what?
I understand the history of it, but I don't. Yeah. I just don't care about him.
There's several reasons. I spoke about this a lot on the channel. Why I hate Leeds with a passion. When I was a kid, my first fully, I am understanding this and we're in a title race memory was 91-92, and we lost the league to Leeds. So there was that. We only lost it because they had Eric Cantona and we took him off him. We took him off them. Also, I've been to Ellen Road. I would genuinely rather go to Strange Ways for a year than go back to Ellen Road. It is fucking horrible. It is minging. I have never seen anything like it. I have never been as happy to see coppers as I was at Ellen Road. I was basically hugging policemen to stay fucking out of trouble because it was just bottles, spit, abuse flying everywhere. Do you know what I mean? It was insane, Ronnie. Like, and when we came out of the ground, they kept us in for an hour afterwards. It's funny because it was a Carling Cup and we beat them. We came out of the ground, like, they kept us in. And a few of the lads that I was with were like, right, let's go and find these leads and get into them. And I was like, yeah, on your own. Fuck that. I'm straight back to that coach. And I'm like,
it takes a brave man to do all that away, like when you're away from home.
It takes a lot of sniffing beer, Ronnie.
Do you know what I mean?
That's what it is. I don't know if bravery comes into it. I don't, you know what I mean? It's idiocy. And I was having none of it, and that was saying something. Philip Mershon in the Super Chat says, problems start at the top. Glazers' lack of ambition and acceptance of mismanagement. The root. All transfers, culture and financial issues start there. Almost all these pundits way too slow to call that out over the years. Going to be a long way back. Do you think he's got a point there? Do you think pundits have been a little bit slow to call out the Glazers? Gary Neville took a few years to get going, didn't he? He admitted that. He said, I didn't used to criticise the Glazers, and I should have done, and now I do. Yeah,
but he's gone like full of away criticism quite a lot openly, which is weird because he has a lot of close links to the club still.
Yeah.
So you got to respect him for that. But now people think because he's got a bit of a relationship with Ineos,
that
he's gonna, because people protect their interests and connections, don't they?
It makes me laugh when people say to us, "You lot wouldn't slag off the club because you'd lose all access." Starters, what access? We don't have any access. Secondly, since the full-time Devils days, we have constantly criticised the Glazers, called them out, highlighted the protests against them, invited people who are protesting onto the channel, and constantly said how fucking bad they have been for Manchester United Football Club. So I don't really think that holds any water.
You get that as well. I've people send messages to me and stuff like that, said, "Oh, you've not said anything about the Glazers." I was like, "Yeah, I have." But what they've done is they've probably looked at your tweets for the last couple of days. They've looked at one video that you've been in and not seen you mention the Glazers, and you
did a video at the Academy and you didn't slag off Joel Glazer. What is up with you? Like,
yes, that's the type of
it does
arguments against.
It does get a little bit silly. Talking of solutions, just scroll back up. There was a bit on there. There you go. Sorry, keep going. That was it. So on solutions, Gary Neville. To be fair, we don't want to be dishonest. He said the three up front are not good enough and the two wing backs, they're not good enough, and we're going to get to you in a minute. They need 5 players. They need to serve him with 5 players who are good enough in this system to be able to play his system the way he wants. Harsh on one player in particular there, I do feel.
On
Patrick Dorgu.
Oh, it's because Patrick Dorgu's... He's not, how many games has he actually played? Because I know we missed 3.
Let's have a
look. It 5 or 6 games?
Yeah. Because I said it in my news this morning. I don't think Patrick Dorgu had a particularly good game. I like Patrick Dorgu.
No, I think
he's a good player. He's played 5 Premier League games for Manchester United, and one of them is probably the one he got sent off in. So he's played 4.5.
Yes, I think it's been 5 games. I think Dorgu's come in and he's looked bright and he's looked promising in terms of his physicality and his athleticism, which has become really important in the Premier League these days. And I think he's been really, really good defensively as well, which is what you want first and foremost from a defender. But the issue is, in this system under Amorim, the wing backs have to be at least above average in forward areas. Sometimes you even have to have a bit of 1v1 ability. How many times have we seen in a wing back position, Delo's received the ball, isolated 1v1 with another fullback, and it's looked kind of awkward with him trying to like beat him and get half a yard. I think people that have watched Sporting under Amorim and how you've watched United now, I feel like there's a lot of attacking responsibility with the wing backs. And for someone like Dorgu, who played right wing quite often for Lecce, he looks like he leaves a lot to be desired in attacking areas, and he's got a lot of like technical things in the final third to clean up. But I still think he's been a net positive so far, and I think there's a lot of promise there. But he does look like he actually is more left back than left wing back as of now. And in this system, you need more for... Unless, especially when I think maybe the way you can alleviate is if you've got a right wing back on the other side, that's definitely good going forward. Yeah. So there's a little bit more balance and less pressure. But I think there's been a lot of it where we've got a left side bias in terms of our attacking play on the side of Garnacho and Dorgu. And then you're not really getting the attacking quality in the final third or the consistency from both. And it's kind of amplifying what people are like describing in terms of Dorgu being a bit iffy. But I think outside of that, I think he's been good. I think he's added pace, he's added power, which is important. And I think he's been good defensively. I think I rarely ever see him, if any time, get beat 1v1. And he's strong in the tackle. He just needs to obviously improve with his final ball as well. Even though he almost did get an assist with the Xerxes chance though, didn't he?
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. It's been 5 games in itself.
It's too early to be writing him off.
Yeah.
Like, look, I've seen players that have gone on to become United legends have difficult first seasons, let alone first 5 games, whatever it is, 6 games. He's looked good. He looks like he fits into the system. Also, as well, I feel it must be, it's a bit of a culture shock, innit, coming from Syria to the Premier League. The pace is a lot different. You're coming into a United side that are obviously all over the gaff as well, which doesn't help. It's going to take time, and even from a human point of view, just changing into a different country, just getting settled, all that stuff can affect you. So I just think, we don't know for certain whether it's going to work out for Patrick Dorgu at United, but at least give him more than 5 bloody Premier League games before you go, he's not good enough.
Yeah, because I saw that Leanne Sanderson.
Oh, she's nuts.
Yeah, saying that it's a terrible buy already. But what he is, I think
it's a terrible buy, what?
I think Dorgu was bought as a prospect, and I think that's still what he is. But he's for me, he's definitely serviceable, and I think there's a lot of qualities that he's got there to work with.
All right, I don't want to throw you under the bus here. I want to ask you about someone else.
Who you asking me about?
Manuel Ugarte.
Manuel Ugarte.
Because you went earlier with your guy, and then it looked like you were wrong, right?
No. I was still partly wrong.
Listen,
because
I'm not trying to throw you about.
I'm not gonna lie to you. When Ugarte arrived, or before he was arriving, I didn't watch him loads, but I watched a couple of games for PSG. I remember watching him at St James's Park in the Champions League game when Newcastle won 4-0, and I did watch him a couple of years ago for Sporting Lisbon against Arsenal at the Emirates, and he was actually decent in that game, to be fair.
Yep. Tough game.
But for me, for what we wanted, I thought, he'd bring legs, and he's a jeweler. Everyone knows about his defensive numbers and the volume of it. But I also thought the issue is we needed someone that was also good at progressing the ball and good at the ball, and I just knew that Ugarte wasn't that, because I heard all these reports, and I would see it about Luis Enrique making him train with the 21s at times, and was how 1 year after signing him, Luis Enrique was desperate to get rid of him, thinking he can't play in like a high caliber possession-based team and stuff like this. And I thought these were major concerns, and I wasn't so much against the signing itself, because I think Ugarte could be a really, really good and strong squad player at the very least.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say that he's a bad footballer, because he's not.
Yeah.
He's played for Sporting Lisbon and PSG and Uruguay. He can't be a bad player. I'm not going to lie to you. I will. And that's coming from someone that criticised him before he came. And I think he's actually been a lot better than I expected him to be. So I came on and I said, I was wrong about Ugarte. There's been so many performances where I've been buzzing with his challenges. I think he's been better on the ball than I thought he was going to be. He's shown a bits of quality with his distribution. But I think now he's started to revert back to the mean and some of the worries that people had before he arrived have started to surface.
Yeah.
And but the issue is, I don't know whether it's as much him or the fact that United almost need a midfielder that can do what Ugarte does, but also do what like a Rodri does, and can do what. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like United have been needing that perfect midfield profile that doesn't exist. So I think whoever we would have brought in would have had some sort of weakness that would have been highlighted. And obviously, Ugarte struggles on the ball for me in terms of his ball progression. But is he good out of possession? He defends decently well and he runs with intensity and he has legs in there. But sometimes he can be a bit rash.
Well, the advantage I have, and I think we'll say advantage over you, is I didn't have any prior knowledge of him really. I'd seen barely any of him at PSG. So I'm just judging him off what I saw in a red shirt. I was quite happy with what I saw in a red shirt. I like the style of player he is. I thought that the derby was his worst game in the United shirt. Honestly, I thought I thought he's much better than he played yesterday. I've seen him play much better than he's played yesterday. And it's quite annoying because it's the derby and you want him to step up for that. But again, I, even though he's played a lot more games than Paddock Podcast, I still feel like just wait and see a little bit.
I think it was the price tag that people were about. Because it's 50 million with add-ons, but without it, it's 42 million, which is a bit okay.
You don't get much for that nowadays.
But I think what we're looking at with Ugarte is you're looking at that kind of Fred type squad player. Yeah. And I think I don't think he's going to be more than that. And I do believe that when United are challenging for top 4, top 3, going far in like big competitions again, I still don't think he's the caliber of player that will be starting week in, week out for us. And I do believe that. But has he been better than I thought he was going to be since he's come in? Yes. Are some of the weaknesses that I'd concerned about starting to show a little bit more over the past couple of months? Yes.
That's something that's pretty balanced and fair, which I don't really like. Ronnie, stop doing that. We don't like that sort of thing on this channel. Yeah. Loads of people point out Patrick Evra had a bit of a stink when he first arrived. You remember that derby debut that he made, which was one of the worst debuts anyone's ever had for Manchester United, and he turned out all right, didn't he? Wally of the week, Ronnie, before we wrap up.
Wally of the week. All right, I'm banned from doing anything Arsenal related.
Well, you're not banned on this channel from doing anything Arsenal related, do you?
I feel like I want to do Wally of the week for everyone that's been saying that Liam Delap and Højlund are the same player.
That's a pretty good shout. I think Harvey again was pointing this out because Liam Delap got 12 goals this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, so far.
Yeah, so far, and also for Ipswich.
For Ipswich, who I think they've scored only 29 league goals anyway.
So it's a bit different than Højlund's first season.
And also they don't play the same. I think just because they probably big-ish number 9s that are around the same age. I think people just automatically think they play the same way. They don't at all. But I think there's been a lot of lazy analysis in the way that people have been the supposed transfer that could happen with Liam Delap to us for 40 million in the summer. Is Osimhen a better option? Yes, Osimhen's a better striker than him. It's just about United are in a situation now, Ineos and finances, where for 60 million getting Osimhen with also the ludicrous wages that Osimhen's going to request, because he's been requesting that for about 2 years now from Napoli itself and any club that's come in for him, and that's what's kind of warded off a lot of clubs. Is it going to be worth it from a PSR FFP standpoint when United have so many other issues other than striker as well to fill? And I think that's where the struggle is. It's like distribution of funds now. So gone are the days where you've got this Edward Wardian kind of transfer policy that I think that's still infected a lot of the fan base, where if it's not big names and big numbers being spouted, everyone's underwhelmed by the signing. Yeah. You just got to come to terms with the fact that it's not a situation like that for United Football Club right now. So the likes of Liam Delap and them links, we aren't really in a position to scoff at them if it's a good price and there's good value. No,
I don't think you scoff at him. I was a little bit concerned. Is this guy going to be another young player that sort of is a bit of a gamble? But I don't know. I'm warming to the Liam Delap rumours. I am. I'm warming. The more I talk to people, the more I look at, and I'll give Liam Delap one thing. Yeah, I don't like particularly playing against him. Not me personally, obviously. I've never played against him. But when United do, he's always got something in him. Yeah. Even if he's a bit of a bastard, I don't mind that. I don't like that.
Do you know what could have been possible if United were better with? See, hindsight's always 2020. You could have had a striker trio in terms of rotation of Osimhen, Delap, and Xerxes.
Yeah,
I think you've got 3 very good profiles there that are different, and you've got an experienced striker that's almost guaranteed goals wherever he's played, and then you've got a young striker who's up and coming who's already scored double figures, and then you've got a hybrid player like Xerxes who can play in the 10 as well. But I think it depends whether United give up or not on Højlund, to be fair, whether that can happen. But ideal world, you want both, but it's not an ideal world, is it?
No, it isn't. So you might have a bit of a spell off or be banned from Arsenal, but I'm not. I'm going to give them Wally of the week because, you know what?
Missed a chance there.
Yeah. I think if someone had actually pushed Liverpool, and I know you might go, you know what, Jay, we're 13th, yeah, but we're 13th, so we're not in it. Arsenal are. And I think had they pushed Liverpool might have crumbled, but I think they've given themselves enough breathing space that they can lose to Fulham and it don't really matter. And it's annoying because it's still a bit of a procession and it shouldn't have been. So I'm going to go with Arsenal, and I know that is a little bit, shameless considering where Manchester United are in the table. Glenn F says I'm the Wally of the week. Glenn, but get involved in the chat in the comments. Don't forget as well, if you've not hit like, share and subscribe. I'm going to be back later on. We've got a video on Alejandro Garnacho. Then we'll be back in the morning with the news. We're going to have a bit of Stephen Howson. We're going to have a bit of Adam McCullough. We've got all that good stuff. In fact, go and check Stephen Howson and Adam McCullough's review. They did one together for the first time in a little while on the Manchester Derby. That's up on the channel. That's been Ronaldo Brown. Where can we find you? He's got a mouthful of juice. Don't worry about it. You know where to find him. On formerly the Bird app, Ronaldo Brown _98, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Go and find him on that. You know where to find me. I've been Jay Ronaldo. This has been Paddock Podcast. Thanks for watching.